Walking around thinking that you're God and feeling powerful is one thing, but actually experiencing it is something completely different. And it will change your perspective on everything. Hi, I'm Amy, and welcome to my channel. Here we discuss spirituality and psychology so you can manifest your relationships. And today's video is going to be a little bit different from what my previous content has been, because I feel that we have focused more on the psychological aspect of manifestation and sort of subconscious mind reprogramming, belief reprogramming, and shifting your state. And today's video is going to be a bit of a background on what my spiritual journey has been. So I'm hoping part of this journey is relatable to you, so that you can start to move forward and actually start to experience what life is all about and how to actually know that your desires are already yours. And I think a lot of people come to this community in the same way that I did, through law of attraction and Neville Goddard teachings. And Neville Goddard specifically teaches around the ideology and school of thought that your subconscious mind is God. And I completely lapped this up. I loved this teaching because it gave me a sense of power. It gave my ego a sense of control, that I could control my external circumstances, that I could control people in my reality. And I would go around affirming that I was God, that I was powerful, that all my desires are mine, thinking that I was embodying that state of being and state of mind. And the issue with that was that I'd never actually fully experienced the divine. I'd never actually experienced oneness. So I had a very limited understanding of what being God meant. And this took me down a bit of a journey into non-duality, where I really studied texts like A Course in Miracles, Ramana Maharshi, and started to really get into self-inquiry so that I could actually experience oneness and I could actually experience the divine. And what I noticed from a lot of YouTubers and content that I was consuming is that this ideology was taught from a very limited ego level. And there's a reason for this. It's because what I'm about to tell you is very, very difficult to describe. And the only way that you are actually going to believe that you are God is by actually experiencing it directly. And because I was never led to that and I didn't know how to do it, and I'll give you an exercise later on in the video on how to actually experience this, because I hadn't experienced it, it actually caused me to doubt my own power. It caused me to doubt my desires. It caused me to stay stuck in unworthiness and stay stuck in smallness and limitation, instead of feeling expansive, instead of feeling like I was connected to everything. And I had an experience some years ago in meditation where I actually felt like the filter of ego was completely gone. And I had this internal understanding that I was connected to everything, that there was no separation, and that I realized that what I thought was me, and when I say me, I mean the small self, and when I say me, I mean my human ego, what I've been identified with forever, actually wasn't the truth. And this is mind-blowing. And if it is that you've come across these teachings before and you're struggling with it, don't panic, because most people struggle with it. If somebody says to you that they flew through this, I would take that with a grain of salt, because for me personally, it actually brought up an incredible amount of fear that I could no longer resist. I couldn't stuff it down anymore. And what followed from that is months of feelings that I'd suppressed coming up. But it was for good reason. It was so that I could actually realize that that wasn't what the truth was. That's never been what the truth was. And I could actually work on releasing those fears. And some people even experience this during what's called a Kundalini awakening, where they actually feel like they're being forced to expel this energy from their being so that they can think more clearly. And the process can be incredibly painful. The process can be really traumatic. So when I see teachings that sort of encourage people to just affirm that they're God, or, I've even heard people say, you're God, so act like it. I think what happens is that we confuse our human selves as being God. And I did this as well. So there's certainly no judgment. I'm not throwing shade at anybody. But I looked at it from the perspective of I, Amy, am God, rather than God is Amy. And when you just this little shift in perspective can really help you along. If you start to shift that perspective of, oh, I, human me, ego me, small self is God, and actually shift that perspective and understand that actually God is me, God is creating through me, God has created me. And this bunch of ideas, these bunch of beliefs, these dysfunctional patterns, actually as things that I have imagined, that I've created as this dream character, as being me, and I've identified as that. I've lived life through that lens. When you can shift your perspective and understand that actually that's never been you, and you can work on letting those things go, you can work on letting those feelings pass through the body and letting it go, because it's not you. You've just created this separate self, that believes that it is separate from God, that it's separate from its desires, that believes that it's small, believes that it's powerless. And no matter how much you try and convince your ego that that is not the case, it will always fight back, because it needs control. Ego will thrive off control. It needs it, because ego is a survival driven mechanism, and it has not got the capacity to understand that that's not the truth of things. So if you've tried this in the past and you felt incredibly resistant to it, that is okay. That's fine. Hold space for the resistance and keep trying, keep doing it, keep trying to experience it. The intention of experiencing it is enough for you to get little glimpses of what I'm talking about here. And what I'm talking about and what other teachers are talking about, it is intellectualized and it is conceptualized, because trying to explain this experience is like trying to describe what water tastes like. And people are experiencing it in different ways as well. And, if maybe you follow the teachings of Eckhart Tolle, where, he, in my opinion, does describe this the best way. And another thing that I notice people doing is that they're trying to imagine what the characteristics of God is. So they'll tell themselves that they're powerful, they'll tell themselves that they can have whatever they want, that it's already done and that there is no separation. But actually believing that and embodying that and actually experiencing that is completely different, because when you do that, all you're doing is creating another face to ego that thinks it's God. It doesn't actually translate in what reality really is and what God really is, or source or universe or whatever you want to call it, because it can't actually be described. You can't even describe it as oneness. It's just something that we as humans have articulated to try and describe it. But you'll only ever really believe it when you have experienced it. So what I want to do is give you a small exercise that I used to do, and I used to repeat quite often, to actually start to open my mind and really get interested in what my true self was. Because we walk through life with, this false identity, these thoughts that are going through our minds all the time. And what that does makes us forget the truth. As human beings, we are addicted to thinking. We are addicted to the hamster wheel of the mind. And when we can start to actually experience reality through a different perspective, through a more expansive perspective, we will be able to automatically separate ourselves from these thoughts that we're having, because they are just thoughts, they are autopilot. So what I want you to do is close your eyes and imagine your thoughts as a chain in your mind. And now I want you to imagine breaking that chain and all of your thoughts dropping out of your awareness. Even if you can only do it for a split second, it doesn't matter. But what I want you to do is experience who you are without thought. Experience that silence and get really, really interested in it. Experience what it's like without your thoughts. And notice that when you are in a space where there is no thought, notice how relaxed you get when there is no thought. It doesn't matter if the thoughts come straight back, it's fine. You can keep practicing this throughout the day. Because the more you do this, the more space you are giving for your true self to show through. The more you will automatically start to understand how things really are. The more you will start to experience your innate nature. The more you'll start to experience how connected you are to everything when the thoughts aren't there, when the labels aren't there, when the judgments aren't there. And the more you will start to feel connected to everything. And when you can experience that on a consistent basis, you will start to automatically be able to distance yourself from the thoughts that you're thinking, from your reactions, from the feelings that you're having. You might even be able to start feeling this in your body. And with me, it's in my chest. It's like a warm sensation that grows. And start to tap into that. Start tapping into that sensation. That feeling of knowing. That feeling of connection. That feeling of oneness. That feeling of joy. That feeling of being powerful. And notice how you don't have to repeat it all the time in your mind. You don't have to tell yourself all the time who you are. You don't have to remind yourself that you're God. You don't have to remind yourself that you're powerful, because you just know that you are. And you'll know that there's no separation between yourself and your desires. So continue that throughout the day, even if it's just for a split second, but notice what happens when there isn't any thought. That your existence doesn't depend on thought. Your existence doesn't depend on your mind being busy all the time. Your survival doesn't depend on that. Notice how you perceive things differently from that place. Notice how clearer things look. Notice the peace that comes with that. And like I say, even if your thoughts come straight back up, it doesn't matter. You can just repeat this process. It isn't about denying the existence of thought. It isn't about denying the existence of human ego. It's about not identifying with it. And about letting it be exactly how it is, letting the present moment be exactly how it is. Because the present moment is always perfect, even if you can't see it. It is still perfect just how it is. And if your mind resists it, let it resist it for the time being. Just keep intending to do it. And that's all you need to do to get yourself started on this. It's such a simple exercise. And it's simple because this is the truth. Your ego mind, your human mind, will try and poke holes in this. It will try and overcomplicate it. But just realize that the reason why it does it is because its survival depends on it. Its survival depends on thought. Its survival depends on you identifying with it. So I hope you found that video helpful. If you have any questions at all, drop them in the comment box below and I will answer them. And I will be making more videos on this type of content so that it can help you on your spiritual journey. So for the time being, goodbye, and I hope to see you all soon.